yet another edition of Swamy Says only on NewsX. This is our third edition. In fact, we began the first one talking about China, then we went on to Nepal. It's clearly very troubled times on our border, and of course the situation with China has flared up yet again. We also have the perennial problem with Pakistan, but I think that's going to be a debate for another day, because today, Dr. Swamy, China yet again flares up. I know you've been tracing the problem, you've told us the turning point of it, but did you expect what happened last night? We saw one of our officers being martyred, two other Jawans being martyred. The situation has really gone out of control now.
Well, I think, you see, I'm not surprised what happened, because the Chinese have now a millstone that we used to have around our necks. Now it's on them.
Which is?
They can't perform worse than 1962. And this used to bother us a lot, but now our army is become much more confident. And so this whole operation that was done appears to have some bearing on what is going on inside the Chinese Communist Party and the Politburo. After the corona thing, the Chinese have been under attack from a lot of nations. So in this occasion, they have done what I think was a mistake, because there is no way of changing the borderline without an agreement, and there cannot be an agreement unless you have a line of control. And so the line of actual control, as it's called, had to be respected. But what's happened is that this time, perhaps we were misled by the Russians that the massing of troops by the Chinese in April is only for exercises. And so because of this corona thing, many of the troops who would be stationed there on another parallel hill just across them, and the river flowing in between, we did not occupy it. And Chinese, upon arrival, seeing that not being occupied, they went and occupied it. That's where the trouble started. But the soldiers are now so fired up that and the Chinese leadership, senior leadership in the army, locally and in Beijing, recognize that. And so serious negotiations are going on, and most of the places which the Chinese had advanced across the LAC had been vacated. And this was perhaps their last two are remaining. And here they seem to have been, they were on a higher plane when our people went for negotiation. And then the stone throwing started, and the Indians responded with equal measure. We have admitted to 3 casualties that have taken place. Chinese have not officially communicated it, and I don't think it's proper for us to declare how many died on the Chinese side. But it has been a matter which is where I don't think the Chinese can claim that they have, repulsed India. On the other hand, the Indians can claim that they defended their territory with great valor. So I would say that I would congratulate my government's leadership, that they were not shy of moving away like the previous governments did, or were unprepared like Jawaharlal Nehru was prepared. So that's how this has happened. Now,
can I disagree with you on 2 things? One is that you're saying that we were prepared. I think we were caught napping, because since April the build-up was happening. You were telling us that we are disengaging when people sounded the alarms. This was first denied, then accepted. Then you said disengagement has happened, and yet this happened last night. So how can you say that we were not caught napping?
Well, I would say that, first of all, we are caught napping in April because, in May 5th to be exact, because in April we believed the Russians. And that's my information, and from sources which generally don't go wrong. And maybe the Russians were fooled too, I don't know. But we then decided to address the problem of...
But is this normal to believe the Russians are not your own sources?
No, our own sources in April only said there was a massing of troops. Whether it was a intention to attack you or cross the LAC, that we didn't think, didn't take that as a serious possibility, because the Russians are supposed to be very good friends of the Chinese. Putin and Xi Jinping are very, very close to each other. So that's where in April we took it in a relaxed way. And the 5th of May we were record tapping because we were not there. They just walked in what belonged to us.
Right.
So, or what we have agreed that we will not disturb, the status quo. And then the vigor with which our people expressed their views, and then the Chinese and the Indian leadership, military leadership, agreed to negotiate and show proof that they had actually come into what is technically the present position for India. The clearings did start, but it is here that one unit became aggressive and our people replied. And I think we must do one or two things in a very serious thinking. If I can elaborate. One is Nepal's behavior has got nothing to do with Nepal. It's got to do with somebody provoking them to take this stand.
You mean China?
And there's only one country I can think of is China. And Pakistan, is always looking for some opportunity to, attack India. So my view is that we should ensure that the Americans tell the Pakistanis lay off, and you can sit in the stadium, but you can't participate in the game. In that language. And the Americans have that kind of strength because the military is responsive to the Americans. Imran Khan is a joker. I would not bother about him. But the military is the key thing. The other force, which is a very nefarious one, that is the ISI, the military can control. So neutralize the Pakistanis with the help of the Americans. I think it can be done. Then I think somewhere along the line, I think it has to be made demonstratively clear to the whole world, not only to us and to the Chinese, that we are militarily capable of defending what is our territory and military capable of fighting a battle if this is necessary.
So how do we do this? Do we...
we tell the Chinese move, otherwise push them. I mean, this is not a place where we can make a compromise, because the whole Indian ethos is today geared for rectifying what we lost internationally in 1962.
Which is the issue, we thought that this government would come out, given the fact that, you fought an entire election campaign against the ills of 62, that this government would be more proactive and not be caught in the state that it is today.
Well, the government relies on advisors, and these advisors are generally bureaucrats. Those in the
Your MEA minister is ex-ambassador to China.
Yeah, but he's a bureaucrat.
Okay.
See, there is a psychological makeup of a bureaucrat which is different from a politician. And most of our politicians are not in-depth study of China. I would, by the way, say that I am always in favor of talking with China. But I am aware of the dynamics that is going on inside China on this corona matter. And being aware of the dynamics that is taking place there, I'm of the view that in this particular case, it's not easy to solve it by talking. Talking will only come after it becomes clear that we can retaliate militarily and defend our territory. So this is the thing. Now, question would be, are we ready for a prolonged war? No. we can demonstrate this, then this may lead to a prolonged situation. And therefore, I think if you look at the fact, one of the biggest, what I would say, saddest aspect of the 6 years of Narendra Modi's tenure is the reduction in the allocation to the defense budget. It's progressively gone down and is now less than 1.5%. It should have never been less than 5%. But in the maximum it went in normal peace times was when Rajiv Gandhi was there, it was 4%. But then it started going down after Rajiv Gandhi, and when we took over, it was 2.5%, and it's now gone below 2%. And that's not good, because I, as a member of the Defense Standing Committee, I've seen almost tears in the eyes of some of the officials who said that 9 or 10 crucial projects we had to cancel because the defense budget, without consulting us, was cancelled. See, our system is such that the finance ministry decides it has to go by any expert opinion. Of course, there is a finance level secretary also in the defense ministry, but he is the finance ministry cadre, so he's not going to go against them. So this has been a bane in our accounting system. I think we now need to have a separate defense budget, just like we used to have a separate railway budget, which also now has been merged with the finance ministry. We need a separate defense budget, and that defense budget must now think in serious terms of acquiring weapons. And we have two countries. One of them is totally with us, and that is Israel. And Israel has a lot of influence in the United States. And if we were seen as being serious to fight the Chinese, I think the American public opinion would be very strongly in our favor. We don't want the Americans to come here, help us. We can do without the Americans. We must do this alone anyway. But the Americans can stop other mischief makers from entering this battle. This should be a pure India-China battle for legitimacy. And I think the Americans can, of course, give us weapons. I don't think we should ever accept any mediation which the Russians have offered, because the Russians are no more independent of the Chinese influence. They're not an independent country in that sense. And I think they must have made a mistake in April by saying, no, the Chinese have no intention.
It's a mistake, a genuine one, or deliberate mistake?
That's right. So that something needs to be
investigated.
That's why I've been opposing S-400 on your channel, saying that S-400, you see, is something which has as Chinese electronics. And the Chinese have made great progress. Of course, in terms of a kind of dreamer, I would say if India and China got together on computers and on electronics and so on, we would become a huge superpower, because we are superb in software and they are superb in hardware. The two of us should have got together. But sometimes good friendships also come after a battle. And I think in today's situation, I think the Indian public should not be demoralized by taking a weak stand, or all the time talking about, now, what was the negotiation? Negotiations is Chinese are across the LAC and come into Indian territory. Yes. Now we are negotiating. I can't necessarily, I said in your last broadcast also on China, you can't sit with somebody sitting on my chest.
Yes.
Please get off. That's not a negotiating point. The negotiating point is that I have something of yours and you have something of mine. Let's settle by exchanging it. Or let's, discuss this seriously. I can say today to you that this border was an inheritance, and it's not Chinese perfidy. In fact, I have a new book coming out on China, which I've brought in documents which I've never seen before, which clearly show that, that we hit the fact that we had everything sewn up. The McMahon line was never accepted by the government of Tibet. the Tibetan representative in the discussion in 2013 or 12, he put his signature and he was disowned. 1912, excuse me. He was disowned, and the Tibetan government disowned it. The Taiwanese government, which is now the residual of the original China before the communists took over, they have also opposed it. That they have not recognized McMahon Line. McMahon Line, nobody has recognized. Even the British Indian government did not recognize it. And in the later period, for some negotiating deal, they produced a forgery, which I have reproduced to show the forgery. So I think we should...
What is the solution then?
The solution is the Chinese, as far as McMahon Line is concerned, the eastern part. McMahon Line doesn't come to Aksai Chin. Aksai Chin, there was a very hazy line by some MacDonald and McCartney or some two Scottish people, which we have used in our arguments. But essentially, that part is you have to start afresh. And as far as the McMahon Line is concerned, the Chinese think there's an imperialist line, which is what they tell me when I used to discuss with them. It's an imperialist drawn line. We don't accept it, but the Chinese have accepted it. The same McMahon Line was actually, the line was drawn which included Burma also, that is now called Myanmar. So in an agreement between the Chinese and the Burmese in 1963, they have accepted by the name McMahon Line that we accept McMahon Line as the international boundary between Burma and China. So therefore, they have to accept with us also. That McMahon Line, you should not yield even an inch, because if you have accepted with the Burmese, you have to accept with us. This is the one where we want to know what is it your security need. They have a security need in terms of the isolation that Xinjiang has. We are sympathetic, and Xinjiang's problem is Islamic radicalism. And that is something, we in India can be easily sympathetic with Chinese about. And we must discuss it. But at one stage, we have to show the Chinese, don't think your army is superior to us.
Yes.
We are ready for a fight. If we two together stay together as we have stayed for thousands and thousands of years, we'll be a world force. And that channel should be kept open. To telling the Chinese, what is it you are fighting about? 2,000 square kilometers is a joke, you see. It has such a huge border. And we together, their goods, how much in our country, the Chinese are exporting to India almost 5-6 times what we are exporting to China. They have a huge surplus on trade with us. And we were seriously considering allowing Huawei, which the Americans don't want to allow. And,
so given all this, what was the provocation for the Chinese, given the fact that it actually suits them to be friends with us? Yes.
I think there must be an internal power struggle in China.
All right.
And somebody wants to show that he can be tough. I don't want to name names because they are very particular about all this being very secret. But I can't believe that this is... in 1962, the Chinese didn't want to fight, by the way. In fact, Mao Zedong, I got transcripts of Mao Zedong's discussion where he tried to see whether anyway. It's only after Nehru said, I've asked the Indian army to throw the Chinese out. I don't know whether this famous quote is, you know about it.
No, I don't have.
It was publicly said on All India Radio. Then only the Chinese decided, okay, then we now go to fight.
So you're saying Chinese are provoked to fight. So what did now come up to now?
Today they are not provoked to fight.
Them? What happened now?
We didn't provoke them.
So what happened?
I think, therefore, my only assumption is that there is some power struggle going on inside
within China
Communist Party. And I remember in 1971, Mrs. Gandhi, although was in very bad terms with me, sent somebody, me and her, to talk to me whether the Chinese would intervene, because I was known as a China expert. So I told her that you're lucky God is on your side, because there's a coup in China. Their defense minister wanted to topple Mao Zedong. And Mao Zedong found out, and then he sat in a plane and tried to fly out to Mongolia, and then he was shot down. And so Mao then locked down, the first lockdown. He locked down the entire military. They could not move. And it is that time the Bangladesh war took place. And that's why the Chinese could not intervene. So, the thing is that that internal power struggle between Lin Biao and Mao Zedong helped us to liberate Bangladesh. So the same way today, I don't see why, after all this relationship and all this Jula and coming to Mahabaleshwar and hugging each other and all, I think that part, unlike Trump, she didn't agree. He just wanted to shake hands. That's all. But the fact is that we were very friendly. I've been traveling to China regularly. They're so friendly. And they think so highly of our research development progress, software, so many things there. And they've brought in Bharatnatyam, they do yoga, they've got Sanskrit schools, the Beijing University. So, we were getting on great, very fine. And we could have, and we have a history also, except 62, we never had a conflict. So why this has happened, I am very sad, but having happened, India must demonstrate that India has arrived. And therefore, no inch yielding on this, no compromise. You go back beyond the line of control as it has been drawn since 1995, I think 1993, when Narasimha Rao was there. And that time they signed a confidence building treaty, pact, and that should be implemented.
Did you see also, you hinted at it that we should be talking to Israel. Is there going to be a new global order or, post this COVID also, where China is isolated? Should India, US and Israel get together, against
Getting
China?
together with USA is useless. I know the Americans very well. If you make an alliance with them, you have to agree to be junior partner. You can be an Australia or a Japan. But an equal partner, you can't. But with Americans, you can do give and take. For example, one of the big errors we have made is we didn't send troops to Afghanistan. The Americans first came to us and said, we want to get out of Afghanistan. We have had enough. The Afghans like you very much, the civilian Afghans. And so can you send 20,000 troops to Afghanistan? And we'll open, in effect, they said, we'll open our warehouses, you pick what weapons you want. That would have been the ideal way. And, you can't, POK would be so much easier to take if we are stationed there. All the civilian leaders of Afghanistan have been educated in India. I know them all personally. And they are so fond of India. And people there want a democracy. They love our music. In fact, Taliban's first thing, last time they came to power, the first thing they did was all the Indian shops with their CDs, those days we used to have CDs, they destroyed them first. This is evil influence. And then, of course, the Bamiyan statues of Buddha and all, they blew up.
Correct.
So the Americans can facilitate to fill some gaps. Israel, you see, is a natural friend of ours because they are small, but they are highly brainy. And we are big and brainy also.
I was wondering how to skip that part.
So, and if we get together, it will be a natural alliance. All we have to tell Israel is that anytime you feel that you're being attacked by all surrounding nations, we are here to send our troops to save you. Sign a pact with them. And all their electronics, their knowledge of terrorism and so on. This is one country there. Second is that there are Southeast Asian countries who want to be friends with you. We are ignoring them. Vietnam. Vietnam is a tough fighting country. Of course, it's not on good terms with China, but so what? China has friends with Pakistan, we can have friends with Vietnam. Then Indonesia. Indonesia is on the other side of the Malacca Strait. So we are in Andaman Nicobar Island. The last point is now renamed as Indira Point. From Indira Point to Bali, or Sumatra, excuse me, is where the ocean, Pacific Ocean flows into the Indian Ocean. And that part is called the Malacca Strait. And the Malacca Strait is where 90% of China's foreign trade passes through. If the Indonesians and the Indians had a military alliance, then no Chinese ship can pass through without paying some toll, see, like in Suez Canal. So there are many things to do, you see. Sri Lanka is another country which now, of course, thanks to me, I'll say, we are now good friends. They are people who they have given, because you didn't give them money, the UPA did not give money. So there is Hamantota, they gave the Chinese to build. All right, we'll build something else. So the tipping part, the southernmost point of Sri Lanka is, just faces the whole Indian Ocean.
Correct.
And we can together. So there are lots of things to do, but unfortunately, the bureaucrats only think of America and whether their sons and daughters can get admission in American universities. So therefore, there's no attention being paid to these strategic things. And therefore, I would say that these are the new ways you got to think. And India today can get a huge boost if it sticks to its ground and say not an inch, and be ready to clear out when you can.
The solution is really on our doorstep, as you lighting. We have just last 2 minutes left.
I would say not solution, I would say opportunity.
Opportunity, okay.
And that can be converted into a solution.
Well said. I have last 2 minutes. I don't want to let you go without also one word on Nepal. They've passed the parliament has passed the new map, which takes our territory. We've talked about it, but now what do we do? Now that they've already
Nepal is an emotional problem.
To solve it.
They are wonderful people. I have dealt with them. I told you last time that the king was at Harvard as a student when I was teaching
King
there.
Virendra, yes.
And he helped me in the emergency. I then helped him to get out of the political...
What about the Prime Minister, current fellow?
He knows me very well. And he proudly tells me that he's a Brahmin. Of course, I told him Brahmin is someone who is a Jnani and a Tyagi. Is not born. According to Mahabharata, Gita, Krishna says it's not birth that determines that you're a Brahmin. You have to be a Jnani and Tyagi. So anyway, but he is hurt. And I believe that he has good reasons. There are other reasons why he has done it, but the most important reason he has been hurt. He told me, I spent 1 hour with him about 2 years ago. He told me that this is what was promised, this is what was promised. I went and made it public. And now I'm not giving a penny. Correct. And from another country which is also de facto Hindu Rashtra, I see. So how do I face the public? And I don't want to be seen as a stooge of India. And then the Chinese came along. Today, the Chinese have said any elementary school in China, in Nepal, which wants to teach Chinese, we will send the Chinese to teach, and the salaries will be paid by us. I mean, I can't allow this to happen. I mean, I don't mind the Chinese coming and teaching Chinese, but we should also go there and teach Sanskrit or something like that. The Pashupati Nath temple is a huge link with us. And I think Nepal, we must deal with emotionally, no tough stuff. Street talk, not public street talk, because that is meaningless. You have friends, you have lots of people who have personal contacts in Nepal, use them and bring the Nepalis around.
So at the end, Dr. Swamy's solutions for Nepal is treat them emotionally, and for China is strategy, I think.
Yeah, show them that we can fight. Show them that we can fight.
And show them that we can fight. Enough of all this talk. But thank you so much, and hope to see you again next week, same time, for another edition of Swamy Says. But for now, that's it. And thank you all for watching this show.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.